Welcome, everybody. We are back to the West Coast Preps podcast. It's kind of crazy. We're almost midway through the football season, at least the regular season already. State's not for another about 3 months, but we're halfway through the regular season, and we've got a lot of storylines taking place. The Bay Area, Sacramento. Once again, I'm Chris Jackson. Dylan Grausz. He's wearing the Niners hat because they are playing the Giants on Thursday Night Football, and Jack is wearing the right type of hat, and Jack is back. He is back from vacation and back in town. Anyway, how are you fellas doing?
Good. Can't
Great.
complain. Can't complain. We got a great weekend of games coming up. Hopefully the air quality doesn't spoil that, but we got a great slate of games set, and it should be a good one.
Yeah, it looks like the smoke right now that some of the air quality levels aren't looking good at this particular moment. A lot of it's above 150, but at least what I'm reading and seeing, the National Weather Service is saying tomorrow, and the winds and stuff should clear it out and should be better tomorrow. So hopefully that's good. I know we got some big rivalry games this weekend, and obviously want to get as many games played as we can this year. But more importantly, hope everyone's doing okay, impacted by the fires. That's way more important than us getting games in. But guys, yeah, we are almost at the midway point of the season already across Northern California. Just what are some of your guys' biggest storylines, takeaways from this last week of action, and also just from this entire first half of the season?
One thing that I've touched up a lot on, and I'm going to continue to because they're showing that they're really good, is Amador's defense is incredible. They have the number 3 ranked defense in the Bay Area. They have had their most recent game. They gave up 30 points, but they won the game. They're finding ways to win, not just on the defensive side of the ball, but offensively as well. They haven't had Tristan Tia play yet, and he's supposed to be he's really, really good. So they're about to open up a whole lot of other doors. I've seen them. They're pretty good. Another team I'm really impressed with right now is Rodriguez out in the Sac Joaquin section. They're sitting at 4-1. Their running back, Bentley Williams, has put on a show this year. He's had 5 straight games of over 100 yards, averaging about 130 a game. He's just going crazy. So, I mean, the running back show has just been really good throughout the Bay Area, but then the defensive performances as well have been really good at counteracting that. So that's what I'm really enjoying seeing.
Yeah, from Chris, from like a broader standpoint, I'll use like a political term to say I've kind of been struck by the almost like dissolving of the middle class in Bay Area football. And that most games I go to, there is a clear dominant force and a clear inferior team. Now, that hasn't been the case in some of the games. Obviously, there are going to be exceptions to that, really good matchups with 2 high quality teams. But it seems like for the most part, there's a faction of teams that are in the top half and a faction in the bottom half, and there's a good amount of space between those. So I think as much as we're seeing parity improve in these individual pockets and leagues, I think the overall landscape of Bay Area high school football right now, there's less and less of a middle class. We're seeing a lot of lopsided scores. I think I'll take that if it means that within leagues we get really good matchups that maybe we haven't seen in the past, like in the North Bay League, Marin County, kind of both the evals. But from a large sample size standpoint, there are really good teams and there are really bad teams. And I think we've weeded out kind of those type of matchups, I hope, in the non-league slate, and we'll start to see some closer games across the board.
Yeah, why do you
Jack,
think that is?
I was going to say, Jack, adding on to your point, like I'm really liking a lot of these teams that are getting good. Like you mentioned, like I think Fairfield, they're winning games too. They've struggled the last couple seasons. I believe they're undefeated to start the year. So there's a lot of good stuff that we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of teams that struggled in the past. They're finally getting to that point where they need to be, which is really good to see. I think for the first time in years, we're seeing a pretty much a landscape of it being anyone's game, which I think is really good to have. You don't just have the De La Salles and all those schools, automatically being the favorites anymore, which I think is good for the game. It allows people to get more immersed in it. It allows there to be more of unpredictability, which we haven't really seen in a while. So I'm really enjoying it, and I think it's really good for the landscape as a whole.
Yeah, but why do you think there is maybe that bigger separation between the upper class and maybe the lower class right now? Because we've seen it a lot of years, especially recently in college football too, right now, where there's a almost clear top 2, top 3, then number 4 is here, and then you see it kind of after that, it kind of dwindles. Why do you think maybe that is,
Yeah.
especially at the high school level too?
It's I think it has a lot to do with resources and the kind of the rich get richer, right? When programs win and they show that they can make deep runs in the state tournament, the section tournaments, and also send kids to play high level college ball or any college ball at all, that's going to attract younger kids, middle school age kids, and families who are looking for the best option for them in their area. So you start to see, like, in terms of and just like separate municipalities, like Novato is a great example of that. Those are two schools that are historically pretty good at football in San Marin and Novato. And San Marin's had all the success in the past few years to the point where every kid from Novato wants to go to San Marin or Marin Catholic. That's a whole other beast, though. And even the kids who are living technically districted in Novato high school area have the freedom to go to San Marin because it's in the same city. And the rich get richer. Now Novato is on the brink of not even having a program, and San Marin is, competing every year for state championships. So rich get richer. I don't know how you address that in terms of the individual little pockets. But at the same time, there are schools that have good resources that aren't performing as well right now, and that has to do with strength of schedule and who they've played so far. So I don't know if it's a huge issue as much as just kind of something I've taken note of and interested to see if it becomes a pattern.
Yeah, and I think too, kind of adding on to that point, it's a lot of the recruiting as well. Like a lot of these schools, like Clayton Valley, for example, they're open enrollment, so anyone can really go there. You got certain schools like De La Salle again, St. France, like those schools can recruit kids, and I think those schools are going to have the higher advantage because they can basically poach talent from other areas and promise a lot more things. So I think it puts those other schools at a bit of a disadvantage. But then like Jack says, resources too, right? Like, if a player is really trying to go to college or go to pros, it's what school provides the best opportunity for them to develop as a player, as a student. What school are they going to that's going to have the best trainers and coaches and everything that kind of gets them in that mindset of preparation and getting to that next level. And I think Reardon is an example of the team that's kind of flipped the script in the recent seasons because they have a coach now who's a really good leader and everyone wants to play for him. And that also helps too. So I think it's just a combination of a bunch of things that kind of come into place.
In some of these schools, you see that have really kind of upped the ante the last few years. You mentioned a San Marin, some of those schools in East Contra Costa County, like Liberty's had some good teams in the recent years. Heritage is growing, and kind of a trend I see with them, and I've seen with a lot of these growing programs in Sacramento too, is youth football programs. Like if you see San Marin, their youth football program is huge, and that's getting kids from a young age now that they, no matter where they grew up in Nevada, they dream of, hey, let me be a San Marin Mustang. Now, how much do you think that can also maybe help some of these schools that might be struggling right now and get that youth football program boosted?
It's huge, and it's also probably a nightmare for those that litigate high school recruiting and are trying to police and govern any type of farming that these big schools do, because you're right, it comes down to even like the colors and the game night events that they hold for kids. So and I'm not saying anyone's out of line with it. I think it's part of community building, and good teams breed desire for young players to go to that school. So winning is still the best recruiter, and it's really the only recruiter you have in high school, winning and sending kids to college, right? Because you're not sitting down in living rooms, you're not making recruiting visits and pitches to kids because it's not allowed. And I think the best programs in the Bay tend to have a feeder program that typically most of the kids go into, and that's not even just football, that's all sports. And that's kind of a reality. So again, I don't think it's such a bad thing at face value, but it does start to kind of create a ripple effect in terms of equity and parity that I think, if left unattended for too long, could lead to the demise of some programs that otherwise wouldn't.
Yeah, and I think too, like you said about the youth stuff, a lot of these programs too, like Clayton, for example, they have a prominent league for kids that they play in, and then a lot of them will go to Clayton Valley after. Campo has a camp that they run every summer that has kids go in there and makes them want to play for that school and that coach. So I think it's also a presence thing too. Like if you put on a camp or you have a youth league and you're kind and the coaches and the personnel that are involved with the program around it. And it's like, and they present themselves and they talk to the kids and everything. It kind of gets the kids more introduced into the sport, but it also gets them introduced to that program, which allows them to, you know, think, okay, I want to play for this team. And then they're able to feed, it's the feeder situation, right? Then the kids feed from that program into the school. And then it kind of just creates that effect that Jack mentioned, the ripple effect. So,
and that's something that can really help public schools kind of lessen that barrier, right? And kind of break down that wall, that barrier with the private schools. Cause that's why you see a lot of Sacramento area, like we've got some good private schools out here, right? But you see a lot of the public schools, like a Folsom's a powerhouse, those Oak Ridges, Rocklands, Del Oros, right? And you see Casa Robles and all those programs and 12 Bridges, all of them have youth football programs and all of them have youth football nights. Those kids dream about it. A lot of these kids are their idols that they grow up watching. You get them immersed, running these systems. They go to these games every Friday night. They're wearing those jerseys from a young age, and it's huge. And it's big at Grant High School too. Their youth football program. The coaches are always like, "You got to go check us out there," because that's a big way to get these kids to come up. They've been in the youth program for years. They dream about doing this, and it works out. And you're seeing that with some of those Bay Area programs too. And Armijo, we'll get to them in a second too, because Jack, I'm going to really ask you about Armijo and San Rafael in a second. But Armijo, their game Thursday, their first 5-0 start in 2 decades, saw a lot of Solano County youth football players go into that game, and they have them.
Yeah, heck yeah, love to hear that too. That because that's such a it's a program with some history, but the recent history not so great. They've got some blue chip prospects now. So I love that program's kind of reaching down into the roots of the community too, because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about when you have a program with kind of enjoying a renaissance. It's kind of supposed to capture the hearts of the community.
Yeah, and you've seen Armijo in practice. I just went to their game, and you've also been to San Rafael, and both those teams are undefeated. They've both been historically, as of late, kind of at the bottom, right? They've been kind of those seller teams in their leagues for a while. And now they've both got these newer coaches in their programs. Things are changing. What do you think's been the difference for programs like Armijo and San Rafael, and what's been the key to their success?
I think the biggest key, and this is just seems cliche, but it's having a ground floor that is buy-in, expectations, and passion, right? Coaches that are willing to put in the hours, willing to instill what they believe in, and willing to bring in kids and cultivate a sense of pride that I don't think existed in those programs in recent years, right? Not that there was no pride, just that there wasn't enough to warrant the hours and the work and the installments that they're putting in now. Specifically at San Rafael, I just know that neck of the woods a little better from where I'm from. But Casey Sully, he came from Tamalpais, and he learned from Matthew Lamont, who did kind of a similar thing to Tamalpais when he came in a few years ago, which is not a terrible football program before Lamont, but he brought in belief and said, let's win games. Let's not go 4-6 every year. Let's go 6-4, 7-3, see what we can do with this team, with these good athletes. And so Casey Sully, when he got the head job at San Rafael, he brought that and said, hey, we have good athletes here. It's not a matter of no one here can play football or no one here can run and catch and block. It's a matter of everyone here is kind of like, why would we put that in to a coach that doesn't care, a program that doesn't have facilities? So they have a coach that's bought in, facilities that have been greatly improved, and a group of kids that really believe. And if you don't have that belief, you have nothing. So at Armijo and at San Rafael, it's a group that is believing, and it's a snowball effect now. Every week, every win, they get even more and more confident, probably more so than they even should be from our standpoint. But in that locker room, they're not doubting themselves for a second.
Yeah, and it takes one person, like overall, like in the grand scheme of things. If you have that coach that's really bought in, the players can tell, and they feed off of that. You know, kind of going back to Monta Vista, it's a great example. They hired Millard last season. All the players, and you can tell he's there, he's bought in. The players can they feel that energy, and they feed off of it, and they're all bought in. And now they're what, 3-1, 4-1 to start this to start it, and they were 2-8 last year. So it's just more of a sense of, it only takes that one person, that one coach, that one player, and it's a domino effect. If that person's bought in, the next person's going to buy in, and then the next person's, and then sooner or later, you get a program full of kids that are bought in. You get a program full of kids that have belief in themselves and in the direction of the team. and then it all flows together. It might take a couple seasons, but eventually they will all buy in, and they'll all get it going.
And that also gets more kids on campus that maybe didn't play football growing up, and then they want to join in high school. Like some examples you can look at Tamalpais. Braden Young didn't play football until high school. What's he doing now? He's committed to play college football at the next level. At Heritage, Brooks Davis didn't join football until his junior year, and he's an athletic freak in so many ways. But his coach kept going to watch him at basketball games and was like, dude, you got a future in football. Come try it. He finally got
no, what were you? Is CJ Lee? Is CJ Lee the same thing too? One of those guys I highlighted last week had a similar story. It was either
Josiah
him or maybe
Jones.
Caleb
It was like that. The guy from SPSV,
Yeah.
Josiah Jones. I interviewed him after the game on Saturday, and last year was his first year ever playing the sport of football. He just became a corner this season. He had never played it before. He became a defensive player this year. And he's already not only a leader on the defense, he had 3 touchdowns in the game on Saturday, a kickoff return 90 yards back, and he's already getting looks in college. So, I mean, it's just some of these kids, man, they come in and they're just natural athletes. They show up and they own the place.
Some other things too is I know, Jack, you saw some of them last weekend. Is Quinn Boyd at Granada. Didn't start playing football until I believe his sophomore year. Quarterback, was a baseball kid growing up, still plays it, but then goes undefeated on JV as a sophomore starter. They roll through the competition, MVP at Notre Dame's camp, and now he's got a preferred one offer and so much else. And Berkeley's had it too, where Jalen Harris, another running back's been out, but he's got some D1 offers. His older brother didn't start football until high school, 6'3", 195. Now he's a freshman at Stanford, right? So it's maybe Berkeley, Berkeley's off to a rough start. A lot of factors. There are some injuries, some other stuff, but Perry's got that program and community to kind of buy in. You're seeing that at other places too. So the motto is definitely hire the right people and follow. I think the best examples are probably Armijo and San Rafael, because those programs really having a lot of success. Armijo hasn't made the playoffs in like half a century.
You can lump Fairfield in there too. Maybe not on the same level. I think their schedule has obviously not been great, because why would you schedule a great schedule when you're trying to get your first win in a few years? So I'm not knocking them at all, but that's the same type of thing. That Alex Hubbard IV is in there, an alumnus of the program, bringing passion and pride, right? These kids probably showed up the locker in the last couple of years, and there's no passion and pride. There's no pride in wearing that Fairfield logo. So you got a guy that comes in there. He's played in 1 games in the program. He says, hey, this is what this program can be. It's the first step, and it's a baby step, of course, but I think that really is the foundation of a lot of these ascensions.
And now, before we get to our game picks for this weekend, what are some of the biggest, I guess, players, matchups, games, storylines you guys are looking ahead to for these next couple of days going into, I guess, week 5 in the Bay Area, week 6 in NorCal?
Well, Friday I'm seeing a rivalry game, Amador versus Foothill. That's going to be a great game. The environment should be great. Like I said, Amador's defense is going to be very good, but Foothill always plays them well. I remember you told me, Chris, that game came down to the last second. It pretty much came down to the end last season. So that's obviously going to be a good one. Saturday, I'm going to the Battle of the City, St. Ignatius versus Reardon. Great game as well. I'm excited to see what Michael Mitchell can do. But yeah, there's going to be some great games this week. It should be a great one. A lot of teams are on a bye week, but the ones that aren't, they got some crosstown games, all that. So crosstown games are always the best. I always am a huge fan of those. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I was also going to highlight SI Reardon, a San Francisco battle that I think involves 2 really, really great WCal teams. I wrote in my what we know about WCal this week that I think St. Ignatius is better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. You know, they got beat pretty good by San Ramon Valley. That loss ages better as weeks go on, and we see San Ramon Valley is, you know, pretty clearly a top 10 team in Northern California, if not top 5. So that loss is to be taken with a grain of salt, and SI has done a lot of really good since then. So I think that'll also be an awesome game. In Marin County, we just mentioned San Rafael. They play Tamalpais in a game that the entire San Rafael team, everyone I talked to when I was at practice that day, said, we're looking forward to the TAM game. We want to beat TAM. You know, Casey, they said, hey, Coach Sully came from TAM. He really wants to beat TAM. So last year was a close game. TAM was pretty beaten up, so I don't know how much draw from that. Tam's a better team, but if San Rafael can score early, maybe put Tam on their heels early, they can start to make Tam tighten up and make that a good game. I'm excited about that one. And I'm going to see Vintage and American Canyon on Friday night. And Vintage is 1-3, but it's a pretty good 1-3. They have a couple of really losses that have aged pretty well. I forget exactly. They lost to Los Lomas, and they had another loss on the road that is looking pretty good. They beat Antioch at home. Pretty good home win there. So I think Vintage is a pretty good team. American Canyon also not bad, but I'm looking for Vintage to kind of put a exclamation point on what's been a frustrating slate for that. They lost to Cardinal Newman was their other loss on the road. Sorry, I had to pull that up. That looks like a great loss, especially a 3-point loss. So I'm looking for big things from the Vintage Crushers this weekend as well. And then Redwood versus Enterprise. Enterprise, a team that's out of all of our jurisdictions.
There's an issue affecting many children that I can't solve alone. It's called
yeah, it's popping up. Is that Max Prep?
Max Prep pop-up ad just sniped me from the trees.
Shout out Max Prep for that one.
Gosh, that was just, and it waited like 10 seconds too. Like it knew it wanted me to get comfortable. Redwood and Enterprise is where I was at. Sorry, Enterprise is the team that's out of all of our jurisdictions, way up in Reading. But Redwood 4-0. They beat Rancho Cotati in a pretty big upset earlier this year. They're putting together an awesome campaign after missing the playoffs last year. So I'm excited to see what they do. That's what I got this week.
Yeah, and Vintage is always a great story too, because every single year they schedule just as tough as you can in non-league, because when they go into league play, for the most part, the last decade plus, they've run that league. There was that tie a couple of years ago, right? Last year was a crazy league race too between them, Petaluma, Casa Grande, but Vintage for the most part has kind of run through its league, dominated. They always schedule tough in non-league, and that's something that pays dividends. And once again, it looks like it is an American Canyon. New coach, star running back, beat Foothill on the road. Sure, maybe it's a down year for Foothill, but Foothill's running backs go down, transfers, a lot of different things, but a huge win for American Canyon that kind of cements itself too. And now let's go into against the spread. Standings right now.
Show right here.
Jack missed last week, so I covered.
Let's just say what my score is.
Okay. I covered for Jack, so I was kind of in Jack's realm there. Jack now is got a pretty good lead. He's at 12-12 against the spread. Dylan, unfortunately, 7-17.
Well, I gotta get better this week.
Dylan's kids are not eating.
Nope. But you know what, though? I'm glad to see that the teams that I'm picking against are proving me wrong. That's all I'm gonna say.
I
about
like that. I love when that happens. Honestly.
And you know what? If I'm 7-17 and these teams are feeling off of that and they're doing better, I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
that being said, this week though, I got to do better than I've been doing.
But we got that thank you Jack video last week. I think we need teams to do thank you Dylan videos for now on.
Yeah, well, I also just got a shout out from the Moreau Catholic Twitter. I guess I'm the only one of the four of us that picked
yeah, you did.
Win over Salesian. So they thanked me for my faith. Moreau, boys, go make me proud this weekend.
Yeah, if I'm wrong, who knows? Maybe a thank you Dylan video will come out. So we'll see.
Thank you, Dylan, Chris, and Greg video.
Yep, that's perfect.
Oh yeah.
Now it's time for that crosstown rivalry. Dylan mentioned the last game of, well, actually not the last game of non-league play for these programs. So Foothill still got one more, but Amador Valley hosting Foothill. Amador Valley 3-1, some big wins. Beat Acalanes, Camp Linomonovis. So the one loss was in the opener to El Cerrito. Close game. Foothill's 0-3, but two of those three losses came by a combined 5 points. Records might say Amador Valley is much better, but it's a rivalry game. The last three meetings have been decided by one score, and each of the last 2 years have literally come down to like the very end. Last year, Foothill has a potential game-winning field goal in regulation blocked. Amador Valley wins in overtime in a defensive slugfest. 2021, another crazy game. This was the last one played at Amador. Foothill won this game. Nick Walsh's touchdown pass to Noah Lombardi on fourth down with 3:26 left. Foothill wins. The line, though, in Pleasanton on Santa Rita Road, right next to downtown, is Amador Valley -6.5.
I was hoping you were going to make it a little longer because I was going to say Foothill covers because it's a rivalry game, but I do think Amador wins by probably 8 to 10 points. I think Foothill is battered and bruised right now. Amador is feeling themselves. That defense, as Dylan mentioned, is suffocating. I think Amador wins it by 10 and covers.
Yeah, I think Amador is going to cover it because they are a team that you can tell is on a mission this season. Not to say that Foothill isn't, but they're hurt and they're banged up. And when you combine that with a team that's pretty healthy, playing at a great level right now, and is, I'd say, one game away from getting their quarterback health back and eligible to play. I don't think you can really go against them this game. I think this is gonna be they're gonna win this game by definitely a score more.
Another great matchup, El Cerrito against Vacaville, NCS against Sac Joaquin section. Last year, El Cerrito went to Vacaville, won by 5 on the road. This year, El Cerrito 4-0 after an NCS title, allowed 21 points through 4 games to start this year. Vacaville's 2-2, but you kind of take those 2 losses with a grain of salt again, because the losses to Granite Bay, who's got a couple of D1 commits, Power 5 commits on both sides of the ball, and then Cardinal Newman, who's really had some big wins to start this season as well. But El Cerrito at home, always a great atmosphere there. Favored by 3.5.
They'll cover that. It's gonna be a close game. Both teams are great. They're proving that they're good this year. But another team that we cannot discount the defense is El Cerrito. I was at that first game, Amador versus El Cerrito. El Cerrito won 14-7, but that entire game was a defensive slugfest. I mean, both teams were going at it. El Cerrito's got some dogs on that team. And they're just a really good defensive team. Defense wins championships is the motto. So El Cerrito, baby. Give me that spread.
All Zag here. I think Vacaville covers and wins. Give me the points. Give me the money line. They've been beat up after starting the season really hot. I think they have some holes, but if they are playing their game and they can dictate the pace and kind of play through the air and suffocate the run game on defense with that good front they have, I think Vacaville comes out and wins this one by a score of 27-20.
And Brody Fortunati, up to this point, is going to be the best quarterback El Cerrito's faced through the first half of the season. So that's a really interesting matchup, is him against an El Cerrito secondary.
And he's healthy. He's healthy now. He was banged up a little bit after the Cardinal Newman game, but he's good to go. And El Cerrito will have their hands full. I think Cardinal Newman wins this one, at least covers the 3.
Now the Island Bowl. Greg will be at this game in Alameda. Ensenal hosting Alameda. It's been Ensenal's rivalry in recent years. Ensenal 1-3, lost 3 games. Redwood, Piedmont, Arroyo beat Hercules. And Alameda, though, even though AJ Parker moved out of the school, what have you got going there? Alameda's building that thing up. Their JV program was great last year. Robin Morris has this thing going. Some talented quarterbacks, some good line play, all of that. 3-0, outscored opponents pretty handily, 101-16 on the road. Maybe I'm making this too big of a line, but Alameda -8.5.
Alameda will definitely cover that. I shouldn't say definitely but I will say I do think Alameda covers that spread just from what I've
Fine print.
Yeah, fine print that exactly. Exactly. But no, I mean, I think Alameda, from what I've seen, I mean, I was at their practice this year. Coach Morris is definitely the right guy for that team. You know, he has all his kids bought in. Their quarterback, Eli Slez, is playing well this year. Will Roy's at receivers, playing great as well. I do think I think Alameda covers, and I think that this will be the year where the rivalry starts to go in Alameda's favor again. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. I think Alameda's pretty good. I just think it's more of a reflection of Ensenal. Ensenal's been pretty bad to this point, so I think Alameda covers that, even in a rivalry game.
And this one might be the biggest one in Northern California and actually all of the state. Folsom hosting De La Salle on Friday night. Folsom, it's been kind of a crazy matchup these last couple of years. Split of each of the last 2 years. It was 2021, the regular season. I believe De La Salle won, and then the NorCal championship. Folsom won them last year. Folsom wins in the regular season. Crazy game, 24-20. De La Salle wins by 3 in the NorCal championship. Folsom's 3-1. They've crossed Monterey Trail, Edison, Turlock. The one lost by 1 score at Sarah, and to this point, who hasn't lost to Sarah, right? And then De La Salle 2-2, but both losses to nationally ranked teams. Since then, beat St. Francis by 18 a game Dylan was at, and last week beat St. Mary's of Stockton. pretty much a toss-up game, and the line says it. Folsom, sophomore quarterback, sophomore receiver, high octane offense, favored by 1.5 points over De La Salle on that blue turf for Folsom.
Give me De La Salle to cover and win. I think, as I wrote earlier this week, their reports of their demise have been greatly exaggerated. They're still cream of the crop in the Bay Area. They're still a power in NorCal. Like you said, this is a historic matchup. But even when De La Salle, went a couple decades without losing to a team in Northern California, I think it was always Folsom that was kind of knocking on the door the most when Folsom was sending guys to big-time programs. I think De La Salle wrestles it back and wins its second in a row against Folsom this weekend.
Yeah, I think De La Salle. I think De La Salle finally found an identity on offense. The St. Francis game, they were clicking. It took them a little bit of time, but I think they finally found it. And I think now that they have their identity established again, they're able to. They're going to utilize that to their advantage. They're a running team, and it works. So I think De La Salle is going to win this game. It's going to be a close game, but I do think De La Salle wins. So give me De La Salle in this game.
So you're giving De La Salle the spread and the win.
Yeah, I am. I'm going bold this week.
And this one, Danville against Moraga, Monte Vista against Camp Lindo. Last year, Camp Lindo won this game by 21. This time, though, Camp Lindo won 1-1, beat Vanden by 6, lost to Amador Valley by 6, and then that, I guess you could say, controversial tie against Windsor to end regulation 14-14. Monte Vista, close loss to Amador Valley last week. Before that, dominated. Granada 42-3, San Leon's 50-8, beat Bellarmine 40-30. But Monte Vista at home, -7.
Yeah, Monte Vista's taken that game. They're on a different level this year. They are a team that's been clicking a majority of the season. They are a different team. They have their offense is potent. Julian McMahon is something else. And I mean, I hate to say it, but I think that whole situation with Windsor really is going to affect Campo's season the rest of the way. Not to say that they're not going to win another game, but I think that they're coming off a bye. They haven't played since then. And Monte Vista is on, like I said, they're a different breed. So Monte Vista, I think, is going to take that game.
I'm going to zag and just try to kind of gain a point on this one. I think Camp Lindo does lose, but I think they cover the +7. And is it 7.5, Chris?
7.
7? You want to make it 7.5?
No, I'm making it 7. I'm going to make it real tough.
All right. Well, I'll still take him to cover. I'll even bank on maybe a push because I think it could be a backdoor cover situation. Camp Lindo scores with a couple minutes to go to cut 14-7, something like that. They play tough. I think that they. I don't know if that tie is haunting them, as Dylan says. I think they put it behind them. I do think Monte Vista wins, but I think Camp Lindo keeps it kind of close and covers the spread.
Then the Battle of the City. Archbishop Reardon against St. Ignatius on Saturday afternoon, a game Dylan is going to be at. I know he's chomping at the bit for tomorrow's game in Pleasanton and then Saturday in San Francisco. Reardon, St. Ignatius, both 2-1. SI's 1 loss to San Ramon Valley. But again, that's San Ramon Valley's playing unbelievable football. Top 5 team in NorCal. SI since then beat Jesuit on the road, beat Cathedral Catholic from San Diego. Reardon lost to St. Bonaventure, but kind of cruise past Sacred Heart Prep, beat Moreau Catholic by 31. Last year, St. Ignatius won 35-14, but Reardon dealt with some injuries. Ravapati's first 2 really trying to turn that culture around. This year, the game at Reardon, I hear Ravapati's Crusaders favored -2.5.
I think SI covers that. I mean, Reardon, I think, is going to win, but I think SI covers that. It's going to be a close game. I mean, it's a rivalry game. I don't think rivalry games are ever games that you're going to see. Like, you're going to see a close game. It could very well be a 1-point game. I don't know if it's going to be that close, but it could be. It's got the potential to be. But
you're all over the map here.
Huh?
You're all over the map here.
Shoot, yeah. I mean, I don't know, but I think Reardon takes it. I think that the 1.5 sounds reasonable. They have a great team this year. They're ranked. They're playing good football, good teams. Michael Mitchell is a very good quarterback. So yeah, Reardon's gonna win, but it's gonna be close though, I think.
I mean, I'm not as ambitious as that. I would say I'm sorry, I said you were all over the map because you said that you think Reardon wins, but you think SI covers. So I was like, dang, Dylan's pinning his tail on a 1-point Reardon win.
Could happen.
But I think Reardon gets it done and covers. I just think the 1 point is thin. I think it's going to be an awesome game. I think it's a 3 to 7 point win for Reardon, though. I think that offense is just going to end up being a little too much. Look for like a 38-35, maybe 38-31 type of game in the city, and it's an instant classic.
This one, Marin County, Tamalpais against San Rafael. Last year, 2-point Tamalpais win. This year, Tam 3-1, coming off a big win where Andrew Gordon, Braden Young just went crazy at Bear River, won that game by 21 points. They beat O'Dowd, beat Northgate. San Rafael 3-0. Casey Soley's really getting that program going up and up and up. Beat a defending state champion, beat Pioneer, beat Santa Rosa. But this game in Mill Valley, you've got Tamalpais, the red-tailed Hawks, favored by 2.5.
This line is too short. That game being really close last year was a product of Tam being super banged up, not even really having a quarterback to play and to push the ball down the field. San Rafael's greatly improved. It's the best San Rafael team in the decade. This is what I wrote yesterday. It's the best San Rafael team in a decade. Unfortunately for San Rafael, it's also the best Tamalpais team in a decade. So I think Tam wins this by 10 to 16 points. It's in Mill Valley, so they got the home crowd going for them there. I think this is a little bit of a brake pumping on the San Rafael momentum train. Not that they shouldn't be proud of what they've done, because they absolutely should be. But I think it's a little bit of a reality check this week. Tam wins. I'm going to say 31-20.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that big of a win, just because both teams are so good, and it's going to be very back and forth game, I think. But I do think the home crowd, like Jack said, is going to be a big advantage to Tam. I think it's going to be more of like a 5-6 point win, maybe. But yeah, I think Tam's going to win this game. It's going to be close, obviously. Games like this always are, but I think Tam this year has just really been really hungry, and I think it's going to show this week.
And in San Jose, a big Saturday night football game. It's a big Saturday in the WCAL, I guess you could say, because Reardon SI in the afternoon, Valley Christian Bellarmine at night. Valley Christian, I think, 1 win last year. This year, 3-0. Beat Wilcox, beat Salinas, beat Hollister. All great programs with some great fan bases. 3-0 going into this home tilt. Bellarmine 1-2, but beat Menlo-Atherton. The losses to Monte Vista to McClymans. Last year, though, Bellarmine did win this matchup on its previous coaching staff. The game, though, at home at Valley Christian, the way Valley Christian is playing and the way they've kind of had this resurgence of the program after kind of that one really rare down year as being that consistently championship caliber program for the last few decades. VC minus 3.0.
No, that's tough. I'm gonna go Bellarmine just because I've kind of followed them a little bit more and seen what they've done. The 2 losses that they've had are against top teams. I mean, McClymonds is something else. I know that they lost to SRV, but SRV is a different beast. But Bellarmine, I think Bellarmine's going to win this game. Just because they have a new coach, so they've had obviously some growing pains to start the season. But I really think that they're getting to the point in the year now where they're going to start to really figure some stuff out. And once they do, it's going to be a totally different team. You have 10 games in a year. You play 3. You're still 7 games away from the end of the season. I think now is the time where they've had about a quarter of a season played. Now I think that they've been able to they've had time to establish themselves. I think that they're finally going to take off. And I think Bellarmine's going to get back into it. And I think they're going to win this game.
This was a tough one. I think the 3.0 line is really good, Chris. This is one where I would probably stay away from the side. I would probably try to bet a total or something, but this is the spread segment, so I got to pick a side. And I guess I'll zag from Dylan because I want to try to get the edge in the point competition. So I'll say Valley Christian continues its run. They win by a touchdown over Bellarmine. And I wrote this week when I kind of assessed Valley Christian and Midi in terms of the undefeated WCAL teams that are not named Sarah. And I said, who's a pretender, who's a pretender, and who's a contender. And I concluded that Valley Christian, based on that strength of schedule you mentioned, Chris, was in fact a contender, and that Midi might fall more in the pretender category. So I think Valley Christian validates that for me this week. They win by a touchdown over Bellarmine.
Now you've mentioned, Dylan, just McClymonds killing Bellarmine, right? But then San Ramon Valley comes out and destroys McClymonds.
Yep.
How good is San Ramon Valley?
Oh, they're ridiculous. They are. Whew. All I'm gonna say is I really, really hope that they end up playing Sarah De La Salle because, I mean, the fact that Luke Baker doesn't have any offers yet for college scholarship in football is beyond me. I mean, he may not be the biggest quarterback out there, but he's running circles around the defenses. Marco Jones is a different breed of player. This SRV team, in my opinion, or I wouldn't necessarily say it that way, but I think this SRV team is one of the best teams that they've had in years. I mean, they're coming off an NCS win last year, but they're looking only better this year. I mean, McClymonds has Wasso at quarterback. They got Michael Peters at head coach. They're a powerhouse team, but SRV made it look like, wow, like what is going on here? They destroyed them. This SRV team has the potential to be something really special, and I'm really excited to see how this season goes the rest of the way. And when playoffs comes, I'm excited to see the matchups and see how they hang because they're really good.
I'm not going to ask if you think they can or will beat De La Salle because Jack is doing an NCS Open /D1 story for tomorrow. So he may just have the answer for you in there. So you guys know where to go. West Coast.
I think that would be a great matchup either way.
Yep. Well, anyway, fellas, appreciate Dylan and Jack for always coming on another great week of sports coverage by these two. Obviously, these two are, let's just say, money, right? Superstars. Appreciate them for coming on. Thanks again for listening, everybody, and tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Obviously, go on westcoastpreps.com. I think we've got 12 or 13 football games covered this weekend as well. So hit the subscribe button, read the content. And, well, everybody, though, have a great weekend and stay tuned for our coverage on westcoastpreps.com and on social media.
Yep.